Do you remember those old stories passed down from grandparents or parents? Tales of a time when life moved slower, felt tougher, but hearts were closer. Today we're traveling back to one of America's most challenging eras, the 1930s, the age of the Great Depression. This wasn't just a chapter in textbooks, it was a daily struggle for millions. What did everyday life really look like? How did families find hope and small joys in such darkness? Join us as we rediscover a decade shaped by grit, resilience, and the deep bonds that held communities together. The context: a difficult time, the 1930s. As we know, the 1930s were defined by a historical event of immense impact, shaking the entire world. That event was the Great Depression. It all began on a dark Tuesday in 1929, the stock market crash on Wall Street. But don't be mistaken, this wasn't just a problem for tycoons or investors. In the blink of an eye, its impact quickly spread throughout the entire economy, seeping into every small corner of society, becoming the worst and longest economic downturn in the entire history of modern industry. With its scale and destructiveness, it was truly a challenge for the entire society. And precisely in these most difficult moments, the spirit of community, mutual support, was strongly promoted. People realized that no one could overcome this storm alone, and the only way to survive and rebuild was to help each other. The resourcefulness and capability of women during this period is an admirable story. Let's take a look at a typical week for a housewife in the 1930s. Monday was often laundry day. Although washing machines were starting to appear and save labor, they were still a luxury. For the vast majority of families, especially those facing hardship, hand washing on a washboard remained the common method. This job required a lot of strength, scrubbing each piece of clothing, rinsing multiple times. After washing, clothes were hung outdoors to dry. They maximized the use of sunlight and wind to dry clothes, both saving energy and making the clothes smell fresh. Next was Tuesday, often ironing day. Like washing machines, electric irons were on the market, but not every household could afford one. Many women still had to use heavy cast iron irons. You know, these irons weren't plugged in. They had to be heated on a coal or wood stove. Imagine lifting a heavy iron, moving it skillfully over clothes while ensuring it was hot enough to smooth out wrinkles, but not too hot to burn the fabric. That job required strength, carefulness, and experience. Just small tasks like washing and ironing show the hardship and skill of the women of that time.
Many families and relatives decided to live together under one roof. Multiple generations living together helped them share the burden of living expenses. Those with jobs shared their wages. The unemployed handled housework, childcare, or went scavenging for food and fuel. Living together not only reduced the financial burden, but also strengthened family bonds, serving as a huge source of encouragement. The thriftiness, resourcefulness, silent sacrifice of mothers and wives, and the efforts of every family member during that period are undeniable living proof of the traditional values of hard work, self-reliance, and the extraordinary coping abilities of the American people.
Saving money became the top priority. Clothes and shoes. They were no longer something that could be casually bought new whenever an old one broke or went out of style. They had to be used to the fullest extent, patched carefully over and over again. They were patched until they couldn't be patched anymore, until they were completely ragged. Only then was replacement considered. Can you believe that in situations of extreme hardship, some families had to patch worn-out shoes by cutting pieces of rubber from old, unused tires? Imagine that, a rough piece of tire temporarily sewn onto the sole of a shoe. That wasn't just creativity, it was an expression of desperation and the effort to cling to life. Even families who had a relatively comfortable life before the Depression had to get used to new concepts. For example, having children wear hand-me-downs from older siblings. Clothes were passed down from one person to another in the family. Wearing hand-me-downs could make children feel uncomfortable, sometimes ashamed among friends. But during that era, personal pride had to step aside, giving way to the existence, the survival of the whole family.
Music also played an important role as a spiritual escape. Jazz, created by African Americans, evolved into swing music starting around 1933. Swing emerged as the most popular form of music in America, notable for its improvisation and syncopation. Stars like Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, who recorded the first song mentioning the word swing in 1932, along with Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday, achieved great success.
Hard times, meals, and creativity. If we talk about the biggest challenges in daily life in America in the 1930s, then the story of food is surely one of the most haunting. Food became scarce for many people. Things we consider very familiar today, like fresh meat and vegetables, were often beyond the means of most families during that period. They were too expensive, or simply unavailable. So, how could housewives prepare meals for their families when ingredients were both expensive and scarce? They had to learn how to stretch meals. Stretching meant using cheap, easily available ingredients to make meals more filling, enough for everyone, even if perhaps not fully nutritious. Cabbage soup became a symbol of Depression-era meals. It was called the national dish. Why cabbage soup? Because cabbage was a cheap, easy-to-grow vegetable that could be cooked into a large pot of soup for the whole family to eat. It helped fill empty stomachs. Besides cabbage soup, housewives maximized their creativity. They learned how to make casseroles or one-pot meals. These dishes were often simple, easy to make, utilizing beans, potatoes, pasta, and a little meat, if available, to create a filling meal. For example, chili, a stew from meat and beans, macaroni and cheese. These dishes were cheap, easy to make, and provided enough energy. Or chipped beef on toast, shredded dried beef, cooked in a creamy sauce, and poured over toast, was also a way to turn a small amount of meat into a dish for many people. Entertainment suddenly became something too distant, too luxurious. When money was that tight, people had to cut non-essential expenses first, and entertainment was certainly one of the first things to be cut. Going to the movies at the cinema, once a very popular pastime for all classes in the years before the Depression, now became a luxury that most people could no longer afford. The consequence of this was clear. Over a third of movie theaters across the United States were forced to close due to lack of audiences. Imagine the scene of movie theaters that were once lit up, crowded, now silent, and permanently closed. When they couldn't go to the movies, they turned to another form of entertainment, much more popular, much more accessible. That was the radio. The old radio, with its sometimes crackly, sometimes clear sound, became the centerpiece of many homes in the 1930s. It was the main source of entertainment, running continuously throughout the day, from early morning until late at night. The radio didn't just bring information, it brought the outside world, brought stories, songs, and most importantly, brought connection and joy.
Hey, what a pretty park. But there's no time for loping. We're on the way to Mrs. Smith's. Here we are, but it's the back door for us. We'll find her in the kitchen. What did I tell you? She's doing her dishes. Look here, Mrs. Smith. Hold on to that towel. Let those darn dishes dry by themselves. 15 minutes later. Gosh, I suppose I should have known. Look at that streaky dishpan film. In the movies, we can take film off this way. But since you haven't Hollywood technique handy, let this smart woman show you another more practical way. She uses Dreft, remarkable new suds improvement. And here's what happens when these dishes have been rinsed and allowed to dry by themselves. See? No trace of scummy dishpan film. They're sparkling clear without polishing. Now, look at those two glasses side by side. You can see the difference yourself. Ask your dealer for Dreft. Remember, you must be completely satisfied or return the box and get double your money back.
Gee, I'm glad you stayed all night, Bobby. Don't you like the cereal? Oh, yeah. But it's a little mushy. It's not crisp like the kind my breakfast pals serve Dad and me at home. Your breakfast pals? Sure, they come every morning as soon as I whistle. Watch. I'm Snap. I'm Crackle. I'm Pop. At your service, Bobby.
Oh, yeah? Hey, gang. These guys is muscling in. Let's get 'em. Come on, Mushy.
Hey, let's go, Soggy. Bobby, these Rice Krispies are swell. Look, they float. Sure, and they're so crisp, it's noisy. Hear it? Crisp to the last spoonful.
If not listening to the radio, families could choose other forms of home entertainment. Playing board games became very popular in the 1930s. Board games were an inexpensive form of entertainment, could be played over and over, and, importantly, required the participation of multiple people. They encouraged interaction, friendly competition, and laughter within the family. One of the famous board games born during this period was the game Sorry. Launched in 1934, Sorry quickly became loved by many families because of its simple but surprising rules. But speaking of the most successful during the Great Depression, we must mention the game Monopoly. The interesting and slightly ironic thing is that this game appeared precisely during the most difficult years, when money was the scarcest thing. Yet, Monopoly allowed players to freely buy and sell, build property, own hotels and famous streets, with huge amounts of money. That money, that wealth, perhaps was something they could only dream of having in real life. Perhaps Monopoly was a way for people to temporarily escape the harsh reality.
18 to 25. A total of 3 million young men participated in the CCC during its 9 years of operation. They were provided with shelter, clothing, food, and medical care. Each young man received $30 per month, of which $25 was mandatory to be sent home to their family. The CCC was widely supported by the American public and is considered the most popular New Deal program. Additionally, the Agricultural Adjustment Act, AAA of 1933, aimed to provide economic assistance to farmers by paying them subsidies to voluntarily cut production. Thanks to this, farm income increased by over. The first phase focused on the 3 R's: relief, recovery, and reform. Roosevelt immediately declared a bank holiday, closing banks for 4 days to stop the panicked wave of withdrawals. Subsequently, the government established the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC.